Good morning, everyone. I'm Lindsay Bridges from Charlotte Center for Mindfulness, and it's really good to be here with you all this morning. And I just love seeing people already signing in and greeting. So, good morning to Paul and Emily and Beverly, Terry, Maureen, and Nancy, and whoever else is here, whether you are with us live this morning or watching this later. We're glad that you're practicing with us. Um, Before I start, I just want to name a gratitude to Clara Irwin for covering for me last week. I was on a home retreat. This was a retreat I signed up for a long time ago and obviously didn't happen in person live. So instead was moved to online. And I'm naming that both to say thank you, Clara, for giving me that time and space, and for her holding this space for our community. But also to say that online home retreat was actually remarkably rich. I wasn't sure how this would play out. And what I found, and I would say all of us named at the end, was being able to carry this kind of retreat energy right into our home, into our daily life in a different way. That was profoundly helpful. So I really encourage you, if retreat is something you've been wondering about, that maybe right now is actually a good time to explore. Southern Dharma Retreat Center, Spirit Rock, IMS, all of the retreat centers are offering these now online. So look that up if that speaks to you. And for us, let's actually begin with a bit of standing practice. And when I invite standing, if sitting or lying down is better for you, follow the wisdom of your body. So I will offer suggestions, and at any point, whatever is most useful to you, I really encourage you to listen to that inner mindful wisdom voice in guiding your practice this morning. So, if standing works for you, let's move into a standing posture. Invite you to first simply drop into a mountain pose, feeling the feet connecting with the floor, really allowing the energy of the body from the top of the head to move all the way down through the whole body, down into the feet, rooting deep down into the earth below. This is not a metaphorical connection. This is a literal physical connection, connecting with gravity. Every cell, every muscle of the body connecting with the earth right here, right now. So opening the awareness to this rooting down. And tuck the tailbone just a bit, strengthen the core, make sure your knees are soft. And breathe in and out. You might begin to notice right as you root down into the earth that there is this balancing, counterbalance energy that rises up right through the feet, the ankles, the knees, the hips, up through the spine, the neck, right out the back of the top of the head. So this breathing, living mountain rooted down and reaching skyward. And on an in-breath, bringing your arms up. And out-breath, release. Release. See what it's like to let the awareness be fully with the movement of the body, feeling into the arms as if your vision were reaching out to your fingertips. The whole awareness moving right with this breathing in and out. One last one. Breathe up and release. And pause for just a moment. Morning practice, we're often looking for kind of bringing the new life of the day, new energy into the body. So one nice way to do that is with the tapping practice we often do. Reaching one arm out and with the other, feel into whatever kind of tapping up and down your arm feels good. One more time, both sides. And then coming across the chest, going out the other arm. We humans have a universal need for touch. And with this stay at home, many of us are missing our friendly points of contact. A sweet hug from a friend, shaking somebody's hand, a gentle, loving family kiss. So notice how we can allow touch for ourselves. Bringing that into the chest. Really feel into offering this touch for yourself. Coming down the sides of the legs, the front, the back sides. Up and down the legs one more time. Awareness dropping right into that touch and that contact. Up to the back. It feels good on your back. Sometimes I find myself making fists, doing a little bit of a tapping back massage. And then when you're ready, the hands come around to the belly. Very gentle. Feeling into the soothing touch of the belly. Gentle massage. And bringing that up to the face. Whatever feels good. Maybe it just feels good to let the warmth and soothing energy of the hands rest on the face. You might want to rest them on the eyes. Maybe for you, kind of a more active face massage. Smoothing the muscles of the forehead and eyebrows. A little bit of a temple massage. Release. Taking another moment to feel what feels good. Offering care, like really allow the awareness to open up to this as an act of self-care. Letting the hands rest for a moment on the heart. Again, feeling that contact, that offering of warmth. And release. Another movement that I often do in the mornings feels good. The feet are a little bit wider And this is just that gentle unwinding, twisting from the hips. The arms are totally loose, ragdoll loose. And so from the hips, allowing a gentle twisting movement. Notice how the arms naturally float. So really check in with your arms. Is there some sort of stiffness that you're holding them out? If so, what does it take to explore letting go? This is harder than we often recognize. What allows that empty coat sleeve or rag doll? So you're really experiencing kind of the release this movement has. And sliding it back down. We're going to do two more, and these are actually two I learned on my retreat this week. I really appreciate these. They are clearly kindness and compassion practice. So to begin, you can place your hands right here. Really feel into an intention first to bring a kind energy to this body, mind, and heart. And so we reach out, draw up an energy from the earth, really fill with kindness, and then allow ourselves to shower that kindness down over the whole body, mind, and heart. You can play with a little bending of the knees with it, a little rocking forward and back if that works for you. Not just let that go. What is it like to intentionally open to the field of kindness? If when I offer this invitation, nothing particularly is coming up for you, that's okay. What's it like to just trust that there is a connection in your nervous system that actually does know what kindness is? And so it's okay to go through the movements without consciously connecting, trusting that the innards of the nervous system are making use of this invitation to kindness. Sometimes we have to sort of walk ourselves back into an open-hearted way. So one more, drawing it up and showering it down. Coming back to a resting pose. Take a moment to just breathe this in. It's not that anything particularly has to be here. It's just you offering a moment of awareness to what's here in this moment now. The second one, I think of as more the compassion practice. When we have filled this system, we want to share it out with the world. So for this one, we draw our hands up, open up towards the world, shower that compassion outward to everyone everywhere. Again, you can play with your knees, the breath, rocking, whatever works for you. Just really exploring this intention, drawing the compassion up, and intentionally spreading it outward to a world in deep need. using this to set your intention to meet this world with care, kindness, compassion, reaching outward as far as you can, far beyond the physicality of the hands. One last. Float the arms down. Coming back into resting. Then we're going to carry our meditation back to a sitting practice. So taking your time to find a posture that best supports your body. And breathing in, breathing out. Feeling yourself here. Really opening first to the points of contact, the support of the chair, the floor. How this support naturally lends, rising up through the spine, the head, the neck, up through the top of the head. We spend so much time lost in a virtual reality of our heads, or lost in a virtual reality of connecting with some sort of screen or device. What's it like to open in this moment to the space around you? You can even open your eyes. Allow your vision to help yourself feel yourself here. You can look up at your ceiling, really take in the floor. Notice whatever doors are present, windows behind you. This may feel kind of silly, but we're often only semi-conscious to the space where we are. Take the time to feel the body here, even using the eyes. And if you want, opening that same feeling yourself here through the gateway of hearing. What sounds do you hear from your body, the room around you, the sound of my voice? Sounds beyond, outside the room, outside maybe even the house. Using this sense door of hearing to feel yourself here. Then bringing that awareness right to the body. And open up the awareness to the whole outline of the body. Like noticing your body in space, right where the edges of your body, the skin of the body, is in contact with the larger world. If you want a little extra sensing into the presence of the body here, another nice self-touch practice. You can kind of give yourself a hug and then gently massage up and down the arms. Use this as a resting place for the awareness, the sensation, the hands, the arms. You can also do the same thing on your thighs if that's helpful for you. Whenever feels comfortable, resting back in stillness, eyes open or eyes closed, whichever works best for you. Begin to move this exploration inward, sensing inside the body, using the breath as your support or refuge. A nice way to start is check in with the mood, the overall tone of the body. This includes what kind of direction and charge in the thinking mind, the emotional mind, held energy in the body. It's not getting caught up in the story of any of it. It's using the breath as an anchor to feel what's here throughout the body, the very physicality of the mood. Not the story, but the physical sensations of this present mood now. Using the breath to ventilate throughout the whole body, mind, heart. Of course, as we are all human, you will find that there's sometimes that the awareness really is resting, dwelling in this present moment awareness. And other times it gets caught up and pops off here and there. Make use of everything that arises. See what it's like to meet any moment without judgment, but instead a welcoming. This is what it's like in this moment. And this is what I need to meet now. So, meeting distraction, then honoring, respecting, noticing, bringing breath to it. Meeting those moments of settling, touching in, honoring, respecting, breathing. One teacher I deeply respect offers 3 basic qualities for any meditation practice. These 3 are goodwill, empathy, and letting go. So, as we sit here now, what is it like to explore these 3? Goodwill. This is just a willingness to meet whatever's here with kindness, with welcome, care. Really noticing wherever aversion lies in your practice. Is it coming up directed inward at you in some way, maybe directed outward, like a story that the mind gets trapped in, outward? Or is there kind of a drifting off, sort of fading away into a sleep state or sort of tranced out state? To like to bring goodwill to meeting the mind's tendency to do this, or some sort of fantasy, some sort of wanting that keeps coming up in the mind. What would it be like to meet that too from a place of goodwill to your own self? Actually, far more radical than it sounds on the surface. To meet whatever's here with goodwill. The empathy. In some ways, I think of this as a bit of a wisdom practice. We can only be empathetic with that which we are willing, a wise empathetic, not a drowning one, but a wise empathetic quality. We can only have that if we're willing to understand things are the way they are in this moment. It's just like this. It's a willingness to bring some wisdom, clear seeing into a moment. When we really get, of course, this is what is arising right now. Of course, my mind keeps getting stuck here. Of course, it's hard to budge out of this, whatever this is for you. And we can bring a clear understanding to, of course, this is what's rising. Empathy just naturally arises right with it. It is a natural awakening of our own system to clear seeing. So, what's it like to play with a willingness to understand this moment, this one right now, being exactly like it is, open to the natural capacity of empathetic meeting? And letting go. Whatever's here, each breath, each moment, possibility of a fresh new beginning, an opening into a spacious freedom, exploring the invitation of release and letting go. Goodwill, empathy, and letting go. Which of these qualities is useful for you in this moment right now? What is it like to open up to that invitation? And as we come towards the end of this practice, finding the breath, ventilating the body, acknowledging your basic good intention towards meeting your own body, mind, and heart in this way. Your willingness to explore this practice, even when it's not easy. The fact that you're even showing up, that in and of itself deserves boatloads of goodwill, empathy, letting go, kind of attention, warmth, and gratitude. Listening for the sound of the bell. So it's really sweet to see you all here, and looks like we've had a couple more add in. Nancy and Drew, glad that you're both here. If we were in our live in person circle right now, this would be our chance to greet each other. And I love that we're already greeting each other in our chat. Um, if you want to add a gratitude to share, that sharing of the gratitudes is always just a beautiful way to re anchor into any moment. So I invite you to put one into the chat box if you want. And I can share one. So this morning, I'm feeling a lot of gratitude for just that teaching of goodwill, empathy, and letting go. I read that a few weeks ago, and it has been very much with me since then. Um, Looking forward to diving deeper into that practice. And it looks like Maureen has said, I'm grateful for the sound of the bell. I'm glad to hear that the bell comes through. It's a beautiful bell. I can't wait for y'all to see it or hear it, feel the energy of that bell in person. It's really nice. So, okay. So I have a sharing for this morning, and where I want to start is actually with the story of Cinderella. Um, I assume everyone knows the basic gist of this, but just in case someone doesn't, the basic story is that Cinderella, after an early sweet childhood, um, finds herself at the mercy of a very cruel stepmother and cruel stepsisters. Even in the midst of this very difficult situation, she does the work they ask her to do without any complaint. And eventually, with the help of a fairy godmother in the version that's mostly known in our culture, she makes her way back out of this situation to happiness. So, one thing that is really interesting about this story is just that this is one of the most common archetypal stories in the world. And there are some estimates that consider it to be the most common archetypal story in the world. There are versions of this story that reach way back into ancient times, all the way up to modern day Disney World. And it is through cultures throughout the world, all around the world, have some version, even if the names and the details obviously change and shift around. There is some version of this young woman in an oppressive situation who finds her way to joy and happiness. And in all of these stories, she is an embodiment of kindness and balance right through the midst of the very challenging version. So, this last bit has given her a somewhat bad name in our modern times. And the Cinderella figure can be reduced definitely to a sort of saccharine, sweet do gooder who needs rescuing by others. But the true archetype is actually very powerful. And that true archetype is obviously an image that resonates deeply within this human mind, considering how far widespread this story is across both time and space. So there's something in that image that we know and we resonate with and that we share. So I came back to considering Cinderella again from a teaching from Koshin Paley Ellison. He's from the New York Zen Contemplative Center. And I really like the way he untangles some of the story. So I'm going to share what he says. The interesting thing about the Cinderella story is that while there are many versions of it, there aren't any in which Cinderella complains. She keeps meeting with obstacles, and she's sad about it, but she doesn't complain about it. Her step-family throws lentils in ashes and tells her she has to pick up every single lentil. So she gets down and dirty and just does it. There's something about her attitude that I find really helpful. She enters the situation fully. It's a totally sad situation, so she allows herself to be totally sad about it. But she also just does the next thing she needs to do, never knowing for sure how it's going to work out. That point right there, that distinction between being able to allow ourselves the full feeling of our emotion without getting swept away by it, still having the clarity to live the next step well. That's kind of a profound orientation. So Ellison goes on. Most important, Cinderella doesn't go and start a war with her family. You can imagine Cinderella doing that, right? And who would blame her? In feelings of fear, insecurity, hurt, we often lash out. The thing is, we've been doing that really well for thousands of years. No one needs to practice how to turn the hurtful people in our lives into enemies. The challenge is to do something new instead. How can we be like Cinderella? How do we embrace not knowing, especially in moments where it feels completely shitty, where we might be on our knees and picking lentils out of the ashes? There's a real strength and beauty in this that ultimately is pointing to there is a way of being with a wise mind and strong heart to what is hard in our life in a way that opens something up instead of making things worse. As Ellison points out, we know how to make things worse. We can always fall in that direction so easily. The challenge is, how do we actually make things better? What do we use to make things better in this moment? So, all of this brings me back to the teaching of goodwill, empathy, and letting go. I got this from Ajahn Susito. He's a British Buddhist monk in the Thai forest tradition, and I've been reading a lot of his offerings recently. He's very helpful. One of the teachings that has just stuck with me is this on these three important basic attitudes of meditation. And his point is, if we can learn how to open in meditation to goodwill towards our own self, with empathy towards our own self, with a letting go within our own selves, in our meditation practice, then we have the stronger possibility, the way to know how to bring that forward into our lives. So when my girls were young, we used to read a ton of stories, and many, many, many of them were myth stories from cultures all over the world. In this way, I read a bunch of Cinderella versions, bunch of versions of this story. And all of them had a substantially different feeling than that old Disney animation that many of us associate with the name Cinderella. In these stories, they were about strong women for whom the power of goodwill, empathy, and letting go reigned true and brought them into a life that was helpful. So, what happens when we learn to trust and lean into these attitudes? What happens when we actually open up an invitation of these towards our own self? So, particularly, Susuto says that the place we're most likely to miss the boat with attitudes to get off base is actually skipping over ourselves. That we have to start it right with us first. Until we know what it means to meet our own self without ill will, then we don't really have a possibility of meeting the world without ill will, because it's always colored at some level or another by the ill will that's directed in here. So, what does internal ill will look like? Oh, it is all of those insidious things we say to ourselves constantly. What's wrong with me? Why can't I do this better? Why can't I be better? Why am I such a failure? Why doesn't anyone like me? Why do I mess things up? I mean, you can just go on and on and on and on with any of those endless variety of internally directed ill will. And they can be very subtle. It's really interesting since he brought this up. I've been really looking for, where do I direct it internally to me? And I have to say, when I first sat with this, it's like, well, I think I don't have a whole lot of internal ill will. And looking for those subtle ways, it comes up, it's there. And it's just so helpful to be able to recognize where there's still this little directed attack going on internally. And it does affect how I am living my day. So when we can recognize this kind of ill will arising in us, it gives us the opportunity to reorient in a much more useful way. And our formal meditation practice is the perfect ground to explore this training with goodwill, meeting our ill will, with empathy, meeting our hurts and our pains, with letting go, meeting our tightnesses and our contractions. Ajahn Susito says it this way: in general, the basic attitude that works best in meditation is to let go of how things should be and address how things are. Addressing what arises through an intention based on goodwill, empathy, and letting go helps to lead the mind from a good position. And that in and of itself can ease the mind out of hindrances. When we can really find value in goodwill and letting go, then there's less room for hindrances to breed. Regard the mind as a treasure to be guarded, valued, and polished. With this attitude, one gets to live with the most reliable source of well being. The kindness of Cinderella has gotten a really bad rap in our culture. Like if you just think what's your internal sense of the stepsisters and the stepmother dumping on her and her never complaining about it, her never getting lost in a rage or an anger at them. What does that evoke for you? Here's what I wonder about that. To what degree does a fight with Cinderella's response in the story, with the goodwill in the story, actually relate to a degree to which we have a fight with the idea of goodwill, empathy, letting go within our own selves, to meet our own being? Of course, Cinderella has to rage against the others when we haven't decided it's okay for us not to rage against ourselves. So, for this week, I really invite you to explore your own relationship with internally directed goodwill. Not just trying to pour goodwill on, but what's your relationship with the idea of you as someone deserving of internally directing goodwill? That it is okay, not just okay, but it is right to offer it here. And when you find those openings towards internal goodwill, empathy, letting go, how does that affect how you walk and care for the world? How does that affect what you're bringing outward to others? So I want to end with a last quote from Ajahn Susito. Meditation encompasses a range of skillful means to clear out misguided aims and unskillful responses. What all these skillful means have in common is that they train us to attend to the body and mind with clarity, care, and respect. Action based on clarity, care, and respect is the most reliable way to relate to any living thing. And training in that has to begin with ourselves. So let's take a moment to just sit. Maybe in this moment, see what happens when you open the body, mind, heart in the direction, goodwill, empathy, and letting go. Thank you. And I see that Emily is asking for a name of the name of the monk. I'm going to write it in right now. Ajahn Susito. Ajahn just means teacher. So there's his name. And is there a book or article of his you recommend? Absolutely. I will. I will put a link. All of his books. He's got 5 or 6 more, maybe more, and they're all freely offered on his website, or the monastery website that he's associated with. So I'll put the link to that, and there are two that I've read that I've read one, and I'm halfway through another one that I highly recommend. So I'll put those in the description box after the Zoom room. So you might have to come back and check later for it because I have to search for the link. So I'm glad you asked. These offerings are freely offered, and we are very grateful that people are practicing, and we appreciate practicing with you. If you would like to give a donation to help support these offerings, we appreciate that and encourage you to go to our website and use the donate here button. We are actively considering what does Charlotte Center for Mindfulness look like in this new world, and how do we continue our mission of making these resources available, particularly as the need for them has only become more and more clear. So we are having interesting conversations and contemplations about what is that. If you have ideas or thoughts, would love to hear from you. And finally, if you want to join in the Zoom room, they've been really sweet groups just to have a chance to drop in and check in personally with your practice and connect a little deeper with the others in our group. And we'd love to have you. So I am going to put the link for the Zoom room. I put it in the chat, and I understand some people have a hard time getting it out of the chat, and I forgot again this morning to put it in the description box. So before I open up the Zoom room, I will add it to the description box for this meditation. And you probably have to refresh your page to get the link. So I will do that first, and then open up the Zoom room for anyone that would like to come join. Would love to see you. If this is where you are signing off and moving into the rest of your day, or if you're listening to the recording of this later, just know that wherever you are, whoever you are, whatever your day is, sending all good wishes to you as we all meet this world with a little more wisdom, a little more kindness, and invite us to explore these capacities of goodwill, empathy, letting go, both for ourselves and for everyone around us. Thank you.